Hello. Today in this video, we are going to talk about what a balanced meal is. And first, I want to start with who we are. So this video is brought to you by Latinas Contra Cancer. We are a nonprofit organization in San Jose, California, established in 2003 to provide cancer education, patient navigation, and psychosocial support to Latino families facing cancer. Our goal is to provide greater access to high quality medical care and to connect at a national level with Latino support agencies. So today, to start our discussion of what a balanced meal is, I want to first introduce you to the 6 essential nutrients. So when I or someone in the world talks about highly nutritional value or that something is nutritious, we are talking about the fact that it includes some or all of these. So the six essential nutrients are carbohydrates, fats or lipids, proteins, minerals, vitamins, and water. So these are all the things that we need to survive. That's why they're all essential. We need to eat them to survive. We need all of these for our body to function properly. In the next presentation after this one, we are going to talk specifically about what these nutrients do in our body and why we need them to survive. But we are just going to introduce them here because they make up a balanced meal. So this specifically is the recommendation for what you should be eating every day. Every day for your meals, half of it should be made up of fruits or vegetables. 1/4 of it should be proteins and 1/4 of it should be grains or starches. If you're not great with numbers and math and stuff like that, there's a representation. So half of your plate, quote unquote plate, should be fruits and vegetables. 1/4 of it should be protein and 1/4 of it should be grains or starches. Now, depending on where you look online and books and TV, the people are going to recommend you different size recommendations. So some will say you need half a cup of grains. Some will say you need a cup of fruit or whatever. I don't want to say that to you because I think that language is very limiting. I don't think that measuring your food that way is a good idea, and it can just develop obsessive behaviors with food. I don't want you to after this is done, go home and think, oh, I need to eat a half a cup of this and become really obsessive about it and be super specific with it when you don't really need to. I think only that's really necessary when you're really, really, really trying to cut down your weight a lot. That's what they do with people who are obese and they want to, the doctors want to take down their weight. I don't think that's necessary if you really just want to be healthy, especially because the amount that you should eat really depends from person to person, and we will talk more about this later in the video. So I really don't want to limit you with exact measurements, so I'm gonna use percentages. So half of what you eat should be fruits and vegetables. 1/4 of what you eat, 1/4 of what you eat should be protein, and 1/4 of what you eat should be grains and starches. Also, I am not suggesting that for every single meal you have during the day that your plate has to look like these. It has to be exactly half of it has to be fruits and vegetables exactly. It doesn't have to look exactly like this. What I'm really saying is that overall during your day, half of what you eat throughout your day should be fruits and vegetables, and the other half should be starches and proteins. And that can look very different ways. Obviously, you can maybe have a salad, and in the salad, you have chicken and you have quinoa, for example. That it wouldn't look like this. It's not going to be divided into halves or anything like that. And then you can have like a side of fruit, or you can have fruit as a snack during the day. Those are just examples. So I don't want you to think that this is exactly what your plate should look like. But what we're really just trying to say is that what you should be eating overall during the day, half of it should be fruits and vegetables. 1/4 of it should be proteins, and 1/4 of it should be grains or starches. Finally, we did mention that fats are also essential, and it turns out that proteins already have fats naturally, or the sources that have proteins already have fat naturally. And either way, you should really limit your consumption of fats to around 10 to 20% of what you eat in total. And you will learn a little bit more about why later in this video and in future videos. So now we are gonna break down each of these groups and what foods are included in them. So carbohydrates are an essential nutrient, we said, and it turns out that actually both grains and fruits and vegetables fall under carbohydrates. We tend to think of things like bread as carbohydrates, but actually fruits and vegetables are part of it. We will learn more about this in the next presentation, but in short, this is because carbohydrates are also called sugars, and fruits and vegetables have sugar, and so do grains. Grains have more complex, more complicated sugars. So as you can see, as you can see, carbohydrates make up 3/4 of what you eat. So remember, we said that 1/2 should be fruits and vegetables and that 1/4 should be grains. So really 3/4 of what you eat are considered carbohydrates. And that is because our body mostly runs on carbohydrates. And this is where everything that's on this slide is really where you will consume most of your vitamins and minerals. So that explains why most of what we should eat should be a carbohydrate. So under grains, we have things like whole grains, oats, quinoa, rice, wheat, bread, pasta, corn, tortillas, all that kind of stuff, the things we usually think of as carbohydrates. And then fruits, it's pretty self-explanatory, pretty obvious. We all know what a fruit is. So apples, bananas, berries, even dried fruit, citruses, all of that is considered, falls under a fruit. And then vegetables, we have the obvious things like broccoli, carrots, bell peppers, potatoes. We have the leafy greens like lettuce, kale. We also have other random things like cactus. You can eat a cactus, onions, garlic, all that stuff. But also legumes fall under vegetables. So legumes are beans, chickpeas, lentils, and soy. And I don't suggest, again, that you sit before every meal and think, do the vegetables that I'm eating today, are they covering all the vitamins I need? Are they covering all the minerals I need? That's not a good idea. I don't want to encourage that kind of obsessive behavior because it can just really make us have a bad relationship with food and a negative relationship with food, to be really thinking so deeply into what we're eating. So there's a trend actually that you might already see here in these pictures of the vegetables and the fruits that can help us just make sure that we're eating enough vitamins and minerals and enough nutrients daily. And that is color. So actually as you can probably tell, there are many different colors between all the fruits and all the vegetables. And that's for a reason. The different vitamins and minerals that are in each of the fruits and vegetables cause them to have different colors. So for example, carrots are orange because they have a vitamin called beta carotene, which reflects orange color. So the colors really just show that how many different vitamins and minerals vegetables have. So a good rule of thumb to use during your meals to make sure you are consuming enough variety of vitamins and minerals and nutrients is to just make sure you have a variety of colors in your meals throughout the day. So eat different colors of fruits and vegetables and basically just eat the rainbow, eat as many colors as you can. So moving on to proteins, we can find proteins in almost anything that comes from an animal, such as beef, pork, poultry, which is just basically birds, like chicken and turkey, fish and seafood, and then dairy, like eggs and milk. All those have proteins. Dairy, in fact, has almost all of the subgroups. So it has carbohydrates, dairy has protein, and it has vitamins and minerals, and it has fats. So you can definitely include dairy in your diet if you can and if you want, because it has all of the nutrients in it. But there are also plant sources for proteins, and plant proteins can be found in things like soy, so that usually you find it in soy milk or in tofu and edamame. Edamame is just soybeans. Lentils, chickpeas, nuts, quinoa, seeds, and then potatoes have some protein as well. So moving on to fats and lipids, there are liquid fats, so like oils, like canola oil, olive oil, coconut oil, avocado oil, etc. There are also solid fats like butter and margarine, and there are animal and plant sources of fat as well, like avocados, seafood, nuts. Nuts have fats, but they also have protein, and they also have vitamins and minerals, if you might remember from the previous slide. So notice how you can't really categorize a single food into a single category. Food is very diverse, so it might seem overwhelming to be told that you need to make sure you are eating half vegetables, half protein, all that stuff. But the key is really to just eat as much of a variety of things as you are able. You need to be aware of the rough characterization of things so you don't lean too much one way. So you need to know what falls under protein so you're not eating too much protein, that kind of thing. But everything has a little bit of everything. Plants have a little bit of all the carbohydrates, of the nutrients, of the minerals, of the vitamins, of the fats, of everything. So the key is just to eat a variety of things, preferably fresh things, so not packaged or canned or processed. Although sometimes, of course, it is very difficult to stick to that, and that is completely understandable. But eat a variety of colors to make sure you're eating a wide variety of vitamins and minerals, and eat a variety of things. So if you eat a variety of things, it's going to be, and usually if they're fresh, it's going to be pretty hard to not make sure you're eating at least some of everything that I just mentioned. I also want to point out portions. So these circles are meant to present the sizes of plates. So in my house, I have 3 different plate sizes. I have this big plate that we use for dinner and lunch. I have a medium plate that we sometimes use for breakfast or for smaller things like to put tortillas on. And then there's this small plate that personally we use for like putting like a slice of cake or for storing things in the fridge that are leftovers. So actually, over time, sizes that have been used for meals like lunch and dinner have increased. In the 1940s, for example, the plate size that was used for dinner was actually the smaller one. And then over time, the US has just trended over increasing portion sizes in our meals. You can see that in fast food chains, where when they first started, there was only small fries, and now there are supersized fries that are actually cheaper than the small fries. So we've trended towards encouraging larger portions, and now we tend to eat our dinner and our lunch, our main meals, with the big plate. But in reality, you don't need the big plate. When you use the big plate, you are inclined to fill it up and eat more food, because if you don't fill it up, it gives the impression that the plate is empty and like you're not eating enough. So you can see here, this blue circle represents food. So these 2 blue circles are actually the same size, but this blue circle seems smaller. It seems like it's less compared to this blue circle because the plate, the orange circle, is bigger. So the brain can be very powerful and deceptive, and our digestive system actually reacts to visual cues, like looking at food. When we see the plate and it doesn't look full, our brain will be deceived to think that we aren't eating enough. So then we'll feel like we are hungry after eating from the big plate if we don't fill it up. But if you put that in the smaller plate, as you can see, it looks like it's full. So it gives the impression in our brain that we are eating enough. So to eat enough to meet the needs of our body, you don't need the big plate. You don't need to fill up the big plate. You only really need to fill up the medium plate here. So in order to control your portions, try feeding your family lunch and dinner from the medium plate instead of the large plate. And you might be thinking that if you ate your meals from the smaller plate, you would be left hungry and you'd end up hungry all day. And you're actually correct, and that logic totally makes sense. That's true. You probably would be left hungry in the beginning, but the body is an incredible machine, and it blows my mind every day the more and more I learned about the human body. The body really is really good at learning to adapt. So when you eat a large meal, your stomach and your body adapts to be satisfied with that. If you begin to eat smaller meals, your body isn't used to it, so it will respond with hunger. But after a couple days, your body will adapt to the smaller meals. This doesn't mean that your body is adapting to needing less energy. It never needed the energy from the large plate in the first place. But it adapted and got used to that much food in our system. It's like with drugs. Someone who has a drug addiction, when they stop taking the drug, the body isn't used to functioning without the drug, so the person will have withdrawal symptoms. But after some time, if they stop using the drug, the body begins to adapt again to functioning without the drug. And the body never needed the drug to function in the first place, right? So it's important to be conscientious of the portions that we eat, such as by choosing the smaller plate rather than the big plate. Don't be discouraged if you feel hungry soon after eating with a small plate at first. If it's been a month and you're still hungry, then maybe you really aren't meeting the energy needs of your body and you need to eat a little more. But when you're hungry between meals, at first, if you begin trying to use the small plate instead of the large plate, try having small snacks rather than compensating by having larger meals. Small snacks can be things like cucumber with lemon, for example, or a granola bar, a piece of fruit, a smoothie. Smaller things just to take away the feeling of hunger. So I told you what the recommendations are for a balanced and healthy meal, but what is actually happening in the real world? In the US, Americans are actually not meeting these recommendations very well, and that might explain the trends of obesity that we see in the US. So this graph here shows us how much Americans consume from these different food groups. So here we have total grains, whole grains, vegetables, fruit, milk, and protein foods. So it shows how much we consume from these groups compared to the recommendation of how much we should be consuming. So the red line here is the recommendation of how much we should eat. So notice that this purple bar that shows protein foods is way above the red line. So we are consuming too much protein and too much total grains. Total grains actually includes whole grains. This group of total grains includes whole grains, but it also includes refined grains and processed grains that have a lot of added sugar. So we tend to eat too much of these processed grains and too much protein and not enough vegetables, fruits, or milk or whole grains. And remember that most vitamins and minerals that we need are actually found in the carbohydrates that are in natural grains, in the vegetables, and in the fruits, and a bit in milk as well. So we are consuming a lot of foods that don't have super high nutritional value and not enough of the things that do have nutritional value. So you have already heard me use the word calories, or maybe you've heard it out there in the world. I want to make sure you understand what a calorie really is. It's kind of important when it comes to nutrition. So a calorie is actually a measurement of how much energy a food has available inside it. Everything we eat gets converted to energy that allows our body to function. We need energy to breathe, for our heart to pump, to move our arms and our legs, for everything. So we eat to convert the energy inside the food into energy that our cells can use. However, the body can only handle a certain amount of raw energy at a time. Otherwise, it would just explode because there's too much energy. So when there's too much energy that it can handle, it stores it away as extra energy, just for storage when it's needed. So for example, it's like when people have a second fridge in their garage when they put extra food when there isn't any more space in the fridge inside their house. So it's kind of like that. Energy tends to get stored in our body first as something that's called glycogen, which is just like closer to the kind of energy we really use. But once we've reached the max amount of glycogen we can have in our body, the extra energy ends up getting stored as fat. And foods that have empty calories refers to foods that are full of energy that come from mainly added sugars and processed carbs, and the energy doesn't come from essential and beneficial nutrients. So because sugars have a lot of energy, when we consume a lot of empty calories, we're consuming a lot of energy that isn't beneficial because it doesn't have beneficial nutrients. But we're consuming a lot of energy, and that's going to get stored as fat if we consume a lot of empty calories. So we're storing a lot of energy and we're not really getting any benefits out of it. And that's a way in which we can gain weight when we eat too many empty calories, and so our body just stores the energy into fat. So here are some examples where we can find empty calories. The purple represents calories that come from the part of the food that is nutritious and beneficial, and the green is the parts of the food that come from empty calories. So for example, you can see here 75% lean ground beef, 75% is beef, and the other 15% is fat. So the empty calories come from the fat in the beef. You can see here fried chicken strips. The part of the chicken part is beneficial, but then the breading and the frying fat is where the empty calories are. It's just a lot of energy, not a lot of benefit. You can see here French fries. The potato is beneficial, but the frying fat, and there's a lot of frying fat, that's where all the empty calories are. Applesauce is something that a lot of parents give to their kids. The apple part is really good, but the added sugar is actually that if we buy like a really well-known brand, that one probably has a lot of added sugars, and the added sugars are just empty calories. A lot of energy, not enough benefit. So this is a list of the top 10 foods in the American diet in the US that make up the calories um, of the average American, of the average US citizen. Um, these are the things that we eat the most and that make up most of our energy here. So number one, cake, cookies, quick bread, pastry, and pie. Two, yeast breads and rolls, soft drinks, so also known as sodas, beef, crackers, popcorn, pretzels, and chips, cheese, milk, candy, sugars and sugary foods, poultry, and alcoholic beverages. And together, this top 10 make up 50% of the total calories consumed by the average American. So it's a lot of calories, a lot of energy consumed from not a lot of foods that actually have nutritional value and that have a lot of nutrients and are beneficial. You can make an argument for beef, for cheese, for milk, and for poultry for having beneficial nutritional value. But as you saw in the previous slide, the Americans are actually eating too much protein. We're eating too much beef, too much poultry, and milk and cheese actually have protein. So we're eating too much protein. We're eating more than is recommended. So we're eating a lot of empty calories and more protein that is recommended. And that makes up 50% of the total amount of calories that are consumed in America. So tying this back to cancer and obesity, I said that when there's a surplus of energy in our body, when we consume too much energy, our body stores it as fat. So this is a caloric imbalance. We are consuming more energy than we're using. So as you can see here, a balance would be when we consume as much energy as we are using, and then an imbalance is when it can cause us to gain weight, is when we are consuming more energy that we are using. We can lose weight when we are consuming less energy than we are using. So we're using more energy than we are consuming. And we can become obese and through the gaining weight pathway when we are in a long-term caloric imbalance. This can cause short-term weight gain, of course, but then we can go back to eating balance. But when for a long time we're in this caloric imbalance, when we are consuming more calories than we are using, our body will begin to store that extra energy as fat, and it will continue to do that, and it will store it between our skin and within our organs. And this excess fat is what leads to the health problems that come with obesity. And the key to maintaining our weight, again, is to be in a caloric balance. So consuming as much energy as we use. And for someone like me, for example, I'm just a student and I spend most of my days sitting, and maybe I go running once a week at most. So I should not really be consuming that much energy because I'm not spending that much energy. I'm just sitting at home all day. Someone who is a lot more active, like maybe a construction worker, should consume more energy than me, for example. According to the FDA, or the US Food and Drug Administration, these are the recommendations for how many calories you need to consume based on your age and how active you are. So me, for example, I'm female, I'm mostly sedentary, and my age is 20. I'm 20 years old, so I should really be consuming around 2,000 calories a day. That's how much energy my body needs. So I should be consuming that much so that I can if I want to keep my weight, then I should be eating that much because that's how much energy my body needs. That's how much I will be consuming. So there's no excess energy that can be stored as fat. Now, I'm not suggesting that you should calculate the calories of every meal that you eat, as being obsessive about food can lead us to develop negative relationship with food. However, being aware of what calories are and how they are related to obesity is important, and being aware of how many calories you need is important just so you can try your best to not consume more energy than you need. It is difficult to eat too much when you're eating mostly fresh produce, like mostly fresh fruits and vegetables. But of course, many of us still have to buy canned and packaged foods, myself included. So being aware of how many calories are in those kind of foods and realizing that we can consume too much energy is important. We will talk in future videos about how you learn how many calories and nutrients there are in foods that are packaged. So finally, this chart, you can screenshot it, you can take a picture of it and save it for your reference. I just wanted to put it here really quick. These are the recommendations from the World Health Organization for what should make up the energy you consume. Again, I don't want to use cup measurements because how much energy you need, how many calories you need to eat is different for everybody. Depends on your age, your height, your weight, your level of physical activity. So I'd rather give you percentages. So for example, here it says for simple sugars, that should really only make up less than 10% of your total energy. If you consume less than 5%, that's better for your health. So this is just a good thing to have for reference. Finally, this presentation is called a balanced meal. For a reason, I want to emphasize balance in your food practices. Balance is the key to having a good relationship with food. Everything is good in moderation. I am in no way telling you that you can't eat cake or sweets or McDonald's or French fries or even the things that we might think are really bad, like Cheetos or soda. You can still eat those things, but it's easier for those things to harm our bodies than real fresh food that has all the nutrients that we talked about. But eating these things once a week or even twice a week is totally fine. Everything is good in moderation. In fact, even the good things can be bad in excess. You can have health problems if you consume too much of a certain vitamin or mineral or carbohydrates. So for our body to be happy and to thrive, we just need to have balance and moderation and simply emphasize the nutrients that we talked about. Thank you so much for watching this video. I just want to end with this quote from an author that writes a lot of books about food and our relationship with food. He says, "Eat food, not too much, mostly plants." So I felt like this quote really summarized everything we just talked about. Eat food, emphasize eating fresh food as much as you can, emphasize eating the nutrients that we talked about, making sure you're consuming enough of them, eating the rainbow, like I said. Make sure you're not eating too much food because we want to maintain our weight. We don't want to consume too much energy and end up having it stored as fat because that can just lead to a lot of health problems. And then eat mostly plants because we should really be eating mostly fruits and vegetables. So thank you so much for watching this video. Please share it with your family. Please share this information with your family. Share the video. It's really important for us to be aware of this nutritional information that it's really not public knowledge. So it's important for us to share it so it can become public knowledge, and so that we can just stop the obesity epidemic. That's, again, especially is important in the Latino community. And more nutrition videos will be coming, and visit us at latinascontracancer.org. If you have any questions, feel free to email us and feel free to look at all the other projects that we do. Thank you so much.